I said I'd marry her if we were both still single at 30. And the day I turned 30, she was standing at my door with something in her hand. I'm Caleb Merritt. And for 9 years, I told myself that promise was just a joke. Two broke college kids made over cheap wine on a dorm room floor. Nora Hayes was my best friend back then. Paint taints fingers. A wild laugh. A little notebook full of flowers she swore she'd grow someday. I was the one with the 5-year plan. The architecture dreams, Smoleskine, full of buildings that didn't exist yet. We made a deal that night, both of us laughing. If we're still single at 30, we marry each other. I said deal. I meant it more than she'll ever know. But then I left for Chicago to chase the dream, and she stayed in Asheville to chase hers. And somewhere in those 9 years, we let each other go. I built everything I said I would. The career, the reputation, a $4.2 million arts center with my name on the design. Everything I promised that 21-year-old kid I'd become. But on the night I turned 30, I sat alone in my apartment under a sketch she drew me at graduation, holding a glass of bourbon and feeling the emptiest I've ever felt in my life. Like I'd reached the top of a mountain only to realize I climbed it for nobody. And then someone knocked. It was almost 10 o'clock. Nobody knocks at 10 o'clock. I figured it was the food I'd ordered, or a neighbor, or nothing at all. I set the glass down. I crossed the room slow, not in any hurry, my socks quiet on the cold floor. I had no idea my whole life was waiting on the other side of that door. I opened it, and the breath just left my body. It was her, Nora, standing under the yellow hallway, light with her hair coming loose, and her eyes red and wet, like she'd been crying for hours and hadn't bothered to stop. She had a jacket on that was too thin for October. Her car keys were still in one hand, gripped so tight her knuckles had gone white, and in her other hand she was holding something small, pressed against her chest like it might fly away if she let go. For a second, neither of us said anything. The hallway was so quiet I could hear the radiator ticking somewhere down the hall. I could smell the autumn cold coming off her coat, and underneath it, lavender. Still lavender. After 9 years. Caleb, she said. Just my name, the way she always said it, like it was a whole sentence. My heart was slamming so hard I thought she could hear it. Nora, what, how did you? The words tripped over each other. You're in Chicago. You're at my door. It's almost 10 o'clock at night. I know. You're 6 hours from home. I know. Her chin trembled. I drove straight here. I didn't stop. I didn't even pack a bag, Caleb. I just got in the car. Swoosh. And I didn't let myself think about it, because if I thought about it, I knew I'd turn around. I stood there, gripping the door handle like the floor was tilting. How did you even find my apartment? I asked. I never gave you the address. She let out this small broken laugh, wiping her face with the back of her wrist. Your mom. I called your mom. I told her it was important. Her voice cracked clean in half on that last word, and she gave it to me without even asking why. Caleb, she just said. She said it's about time. Something in my chest pulled tight. It's my birthday, I said stupidly. Because I didn't know what else to say. Because my brain couldn't catch up to my heart. I know what day it is. She looked right at me then, and her eyes were so full I felt it in my own throat. I have known what day it is for 9 years. The hallway went still, and I understood. Somewhere deep down, before my mind could even put it into words, that she hadn't driven 6 hours through the night for nothing. People don't do that for nothing. People don't show up crying at your door after almost a decade of silence unless something inside them finally broke open. Nora, I said softly, what's going on? Talk to me, you're scaring me. She looked down at her own hand, the one pressed to her chest, the one holding the small thing she'd been clutching this whole time like it was the only solid thing left in the world. Slowly she lifted it, and I saw it was a little paper envelope, faded, soft at the corners from being handled too many times. The kind of envelope that's been carried in a pocket for years, taken out, looked at, put away again. There was something written on the front in her handwriting, but I couldn't read it from where I stood. Her hand was shaking. I almost didn't come, she whispered. I sat in my car outside your building for an hour. I told myself you've probably moved on. I told myself you probably don't even remember. She swallowed hard. I told myself 1,000 reasons to drive back home. But then I looked at this. She lifted the envelope an inch higher, and I knew if I didn't give it to you tonight, on this exact day, I'd spend the rest of my life wondering. I reached out without thinking. Nora, what is that? She pulled it back against her chest. Not far. Just an inch, just enough. Before I give you this, she said, and her voice dropped so low I had to lean in to hear it. I need you to tell me the truth about something, and I need you to promise you won't lie to me, Caleb. Not tonight, not anymore. My heart was in my throat. Okay, I breathed. I promise. She took a shaky breath, the kind you take before you jump off something high. Do you even remember the promise? She asked, and the whole world went quiet, waiting for my answer. Do you even remember the promise? She said it so quietly, but it hit me like a thunderclap. Did I remember? Did I remember? I almost laughed, not because it was funny, because the question was so painful in its innocence that laughing was the only thing standing between me and completely falling apart right there in my own doorway. I stepped back. Come inside, Nora. She hesitated for just a second, one small breath of hesitation, and then she stepped through the door. I closed it behind her. She stood in the middle of my living room and looked around slowly. The Coltrane record was still turning. The bourbon glass was still on the coffee table. The city lights were pressing through the tall windows, like they always do on October nights in Chicago. Gold and amber and relentless. And there, on the wall above the couch, exactly where it had been for 9 years, was her sketch. She saw it immediately. Her hand came up to her mouth. Caleb. Her voice broke. It's been on every wall, I said quietly. Every apartment, every city, every single place I've lived since graduation. That sketch came with me everywhere. She turned to look at me. Her eyes were flooding again. You kept it. I kept it, I said, because I kept the promise too, Nora. Every single day for 9 years. I kept it. The room went so still, you could hear the record breathing. And then something shifted in her face. Something cracked open, and I watched 9 years of held-back truth move across her expression like weather crossing a field. She pressed the envelope harder against her chest. Her chin was shaking. You have to understand something, she said. I wasn't going to come. I talked myself out of this 100 times, 1,000 times. I told myself we were 21 when we said it. I told myself you were in Chicago living this enormous life, and I was just Nora from Asheville with dirt under her fingernails and a flower shop that almost didn't survive last winter. Her voice cracked. I told myself you'd moved on. I told myself maybe you were happy with someone, that the promise was just a joke, that I was crazy for holding on to it. But, I asked. She looked up at me. But I couldn't stop, she whispered. I tried, Caleb. I tried dating other people. I tried filling my life so full there was no room for the wondering. But every birthday, yours and mine both, I'd go quiet inside. And I'd think about that night in the dorm room. And I'd think about the way you said deal. Not laughing, not joking. Just quiet and real, and looking at me like... She stopped herself, swallowed hard. Like you meant it. The record turned in the silence. I did mean it, I said, her breath caught. I have been in love with you since freshman year, I said. Every word, slow and deliberate, pulled up from somewhere so deep inside me it almost hurt coming out. Since you tripped over my bag in that hallway and blamed my luggage placement. Since you sat next to me in every class. Because you said I looked like someone who took good notes. Since every late night and every bad meal and every dream we talked about like they were already real. I took a step toward her. I left for Chicago because I had to. Because I had something to build. Because I couldn't come to you with nothing, Nora. I couldn't ask you to believe in a man who hadn't proven anything yet. She was crying now, quietly. The way people cry when they're trying not to. I almost got engaged, I told her. A few years ago. Her name was Paige. She was good. She was kind. But she looked at me one night and said, "You're in love with someone else." And Caleb, I couldn't argue. I couldn't even try. A sound escaped Nora's throat. Half a laugh, half a sob. What? I asked. There was someone for me too, she said. His name was Devon. And the night he left, he said the same thing, almost word for word. She shook her head slowly. We've been haunting each other's lives without even knowing it. That sentence hit me somewhere I didn't have armor for. We stood there for a long moment, 6 feet apart in the amber light of the city. Two people who had spent 9 years building dreams and accidentally building walls and missing each other across every mile of it. Then I looked at the envelope. What is that? I asked softly. What have you been holding on to? She looked down at it in her hand. She turned it over slowly, and she held it out to me. I took it. On the front, in her handwriting, were 5 words. For when you turn 30. My hands stilled. My whole body stilled. Open it, she said. I lifted the flap carefully, like it was something sacred, which I was starting to understand it was. Inside were 2 things. The first was a small, clear packet. Seeds. Sunflower seeds. 8 or 10 of them, rattling soft and light inside the sealed plastic. The second was a piece of paper, folded 3 times, worn at the creases from years of being unfolded and refolded and carried close. I unfolded it. Her handwriting, younger than it is now, written by a 21-year-old girl who made a deal on a dorm room floor and knew, even then, that she meant it. I read it. Caleb, if you're reading this, it means one of 2 things. Either I was brave enough to give it to you, or you found it somewhere I left it by mistake. I'm hoping it's the first one. I'm writing this the night before graduation. You're asleep, 2 buildings away, and I'm sitting at my window with the lights of campus, and I'm thinking about tomorrow, about you leaving, about Chicago, about the plan you have in that notebook that I've read the first page of 3 times, because you always fall asleep before you close it. I believe in your dream, Caleb. I believe in it the way I believe in spring. Like it's going to happen no matter what, and everything in its path is going to be better for it. But here's the thing I'm too scared to say out loud. I planted a sunflower the first week of freshman year, right outside the east side of the greenhouse on campus. I never told you. I planted it, and I never told anyone. But I thought about you every single time I watered it. That probably sounds ridiculous. You can laugh. I'm keeping these seeds from it, and I'm not planting them until I know where home is. If you're still single at 30, Caleb Merritt, and if you still want me, I'll plant them wherever you are. But if you've moved on and found someone wonderful, then I'll plant them in Asheville, and I'll be happy for you. And I'll mean it. Either way, they'll grow. That's the thing about dreams. They grow if you tend them. Yours always, Nora. I couldn't speak. I stood there holding that paper, and I felt 9 years collapse into one single moment, like a telescope folding shut. Every late night in Chicago, every lonely birthday, every time I drove past a flower shop and felt something I couldn't name, every second of building and striving and achieving without anyone beside me who knew what it cost. She was right there. She had always been right there. On the other side of an envelope she'd been carrying since the night before she watched me drive away. Nora. My voice came out broken and low. I know it's a lot, she whispered. I know it's been 9 years, and I know I probably should have. Nora. I looked up from the paper. Stop. She stopped. I want you to plant them, I said. Right here, in Chicago, wherever you want. Any window box, any rooftop, any patch of soil this city will give you. My voice was steady now, even though my chest felt like it was cracking wide open in the best possible way. I want you to plant them here, because I want you here. I have wanted you here since the day I left. She pressed her lips together, tears spilling quietly. But I need you to know something first, I said, taking one step toward her. Something I should have said 9 years ago, before I ever got in that car. She looked at me, waiting. You are my dream too, Nora. Not instead of Chicago. Not instead of the buildings and the work and everything I built. In addition to. You were always part of the dream. I just didn't have the courage to say it out loud when it mattered most. She covered her face with both hands, and a sob came out of her. Small and overwhelmed and relieved, the kind of cry that only comes after years of holding something in. I crossed the room. I wrapped both arms around her, and she buried her face in my chest, and I held her the way I'd wanted to since that last our parking lot hug 9 years ago. Not a goodbye hold, not a best friend hold, but the real kind. The kind that says, I'm not letting go this time. She gripped the back of my shirt with both fists. The Coltrane record turned. The city glittered outside the window. And for the first time since I turned 30 that morning, the emptiness was gone. But neither of us knew yet that the hardest conversation was still ahead. Because Nora still had a secret she hadn't said out loud yet. Something about Asheville, about Petal and Root, about why she'd really needed to come tonight, beyond the promise, beyond the love. Something she was terrified would change everything. She pulled back from my arms first. Just a little, just enough to look at me. And I saw it immediately. The thing behind her eyes that wasn't just tears and relief, and 9 years of longing finally let loose. There was something else sitting there. Something heavier. Something she was still carrying that the hug hadn't lifted. Nora. I searched her face. What else? She stepped back, wiped her cheek with her sleeve, and then she did something that scared me more than the crying. She smiled, but it was the kind of smiles that's holding a boulder behind it. I need to tell you something, she said, and I need you to hear the whole thing before you say anything. Okay? Okay, I said carefully. She walked to the window, looked out at Chicago for a long moment. All those lights, all that ambition stacked 40 stories high. Then she turned around and crossed her arms over her chest, not closed off, bracing. I opened Petal and Root 2 years ago, she began. My face broke into a smile. I know. I saw it on your page. Nora, that's... Let me finish. Her voice was gentle but firm. I opened it. It was everything I'd sketched in that notebooks since we were 21. The smell of it, Caleb, fresh stems and wet soil and old wood floors. People came in for anniversaries and baby showers and funerals and first dates. I made arrangements for a woman who lost her mother and a little girl who wanted to give her teacher something beautiful. It was exactly what I always imagined. She paused. But last winter, the building's owner sold it. New landlord came in, tripled the rent. I tried to make it work. I took out a loan. I cut my own salary to nothing. I sold my car, the good one. I've been driving my mother's old Honda for 8 months. My stomach tightened. The loan runs out at the end of this month, she said quietly. November 1st. If I can't cover the next 3 months of rent by then, I lose the shop, Caleb. I lose everything I spent 9 years building. The room was very still. How much? I asked. She shook her head immediately. That is not why I came here. I need you to know that. I did not drive 6 hours to ask you for money. I came here because of the promise. Because today's was the day, and I was tired of being a coward, and I needed you to know how I felt before anything else in my life got decided. Her eyes were fierce now, even through the wet. I didn't come here to be rescued. I came here because I love you. Those are 2 completely different things. And right there, right in that moment, I think I fell in love with her all over again, deeper than before. Because that was the most Nora thing she'd ever said. She was standing in the middle of losing everything, and her first priority was making sure I didn't mistake her love for desperation. I crossed the room in 4 steps. I took both her hands. Listen to me, I said. 2 weeks ago, the city approved my design for the Meridian Arts Center. You know what the first thing I thought was when I found out? She shook her head. I wish Nora knew. I wanted to call you. I almost did. I stood there in the middle of my office with my phone in my hand for 10 minutes. And then I put it away because I didn't know how to explain why hearing your voice was the only thing that would make it feel real. I squeezed her hands. That project has a community garden component built into the design. A living wall. A green space for the neighborhood. I've been working with a botanical consultant for 6 months, and nothing has felt right because, Nora, because I kept thinking she would know exactly what to do here. Her lips parted. I'm not offering you charity, I said firmly. I'm offering you a partnership, a real one. Petal and Root doesn't have to stay in one building. It can grow. Into the art center, into the community, into something bigger than a lease some landlord can triple on you. You bring the flowers. I'll build you a space that no one can take away. Tears spilled down both her cheeks. Caleb, you can't just... Nora, my voice dropped low. I spent 9 years building things for a city that didn't know my name yet. Every beam, every blueprint, every late night. I told myself I was doing it for the dream. I brought her hands up between us. But I think I was doing it for this. For the moment when I could look at you and say, I built something worthy. Something worth inviting you into. Something that finally matches the way I feel about you. A sound came out of her that wasn't quite a laugh and wasn't quite a sob. It was something in between. It was the sound of a person setting down a weight they've carried. So long they forgot what it felt like to stand straight. And then she leaned forward and rested her forehead against mine. We stood like that, the city moving outside, the records still turning, soft and golden. Two people who'd spent 9 years being brave about everything except each other. Finally being brave about this. I'm terrified, she whispered. Me too, I whispered back. I'm absolutely terrified. But, she asked. I smiled. She felt it. But I would rather be terrified with you than certain without you, I said, for the rest of my life. She laughed, a real one this time, wet and relieved and luminous, and she pulled back just far enough to look at me, her eyes searching my face like she was memorizing every detail. So what do we do? She asked. First, I reached past her to the coffee table and picked up my phone. I'm calling my firm's attorney. First thing tomorrow morning, we're drawing up a partnership agreement that protects Petal and Root for good. I set the phone back down. And tonight, we order more food because I didn't eat nearly enough. And you tell me everything about the shop. And we figure out the rest together, the way we should have been doing for the last 9 years. She narrowed her eyes at me, trying not to smile and failing completely. You're very calm about this. I am not calm, I said. My heart is going absolutely insane right now. But I have wanted this moment for 9 years, and I am not wasting it on panic. She laughed again, louder this time. And then she reached into the pocket of her thin jacket, the one that wasn't warm enough for October. And she pulled out the small packet of sunflower seeds. She held them up between us in the amber light. Where do we plant them? She asked softly. I looked around my apartment, at the big south-facing window, at the deep windowsill where the city light poured in every morning like it was trying to fill the place up. Right there, I said. First thing in the morning, you and me both. She looked at the windowsill, then back at me. Her whole face was soft and open and more beautiful than anything I had designed or built or imagined in 9 years of trying. Okay, she said simply. And that was it. That was the whole promise, finally, fully kept. Not with a grand gesture, not with a speech, but with a windowsill and a packet of sunflower seeds and 2 people who had never stopped believing, even when they were too scared to admit it, that the best things in life are worth waiting for. 4 months later, on a Saturday in late February, Nora Hayes stood inside the new permanent home of Petal and Root, a sun-flooded corner space built into the ground floor of the Meridian Community Arts Center, with 12 feet of living green wall behind the counter, and a handmade wooden sign above the door that Caleb built himself on 3 consecutive Sundays when he thought she wasn't watching. The sunflowers were already 8 inches tall on the windowsill of his apartment. She never moved back to Asheville. She never needed to, because home, it turns out, was never a city. Home was a promise 2 21-year-olds made on a dorm room floor, and the courage it took, 9 years later, to finally knock on a door and find out if it was still true. It was. It always had been. Some dreams don't die. They just wait for you to be brave enough to water them. If this story moved something inside you, if it made you feel something real, then you are exactly the kind of person this channel was built for. We tell stories here that don't just entertain. They remind you of things your heart already knows, but sometimes needs to hear again. Subscribe to this channel right now and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story that was made for you. A new one drops every single week, and trust me, you do not want to walk into the middle of what's coming next. But before you go, I want to leave you with something to think about. Is there someone in your life, maybe from your past, maybe right now, that you made a promise to and never kept? Or maybe you're one of the rare ones, still with your very first love, the person who saw you before you became who you are today. Maybe you let someone go because the timing was wrong, and you've wondered ever since what might have happened if one of you had been brave enough to knock on that door. Drop it in the comments right now. Tell me your story. Tell me if you kept the promise. Tell me if you're still waiting. Tell me if the person you let go is the one you still think about on quiet nights when the city lights come through the window and the music plays low. Because here is what Caleb and Nora taught us today. It is never just about love. It is about the courage to believe that what you built in the dark was worth something, that the dream you refused to abandon, even when everything said quit, was pointing you somewhere real. You did not give up on your dream. Don't give up on the people who belong inside it either.